So obviously we've seen a lot of disruption at Heathrow Airport in the UK, and that has had many knock-on consequences given that it is one of the busiest airports, not just in the UK, but in the world. And you have warned that if we were to see similar disruption in Dublin Airport, that could have majorly negative knock-on consequences for tourism and things of that nature. I'm wondering, like, how severe do you think the impact on tourism would be if we saw something similar in this country?
We have an absolutely horrific over reliance on Dublin Airport in this country. It is an issue that I have been talking about and banging on about, actually, to be quite honest, for years. And I've already been engaging with my government party colleagues and Minister O'Brien on the matter as soon as we got back in there in February. And to be honest, it's critical that we address it. In Ireland, we last year, I think it was 86% of all flights inbound into the country came in to Dublin Airport. Now, by comparison, Heathrow, and you can see the disruption that's happening in Heathrow and in the UK today, Heathrow only handles about 34% of the overall passenger numbers coming into the UK. It is the largest single airport in the UK. It's got 79.2 million passengers per annum, but that's only 34% of their overall traffic. By comparison, Dublin Airport had we 34 million plus passengers last year, and it's over 85%, 86% of our overall passenger numbers into the country. So should a similar disruption happen to Dublin Airport, we would really feel the consequences in our tourism sector, hotels, accommodation, restaurants, transport, onward transport, buses, taxis. We'd feel it ripple right across the country. And of course, the rural areas that are more reliant on tourism are the parts of the country that would be worst hit.
From the perspective of regional balance, obviously regional balance in aviation has been discussed for many years now, and this has been an issue that people like yourself have been flagging for quite some time. Why do you think this is something that we haven't seen manifest over so many years, despite so many people raising the alarm bells about it? Is there resistance to it in certain quarters, or what do you think the impediment is?
I think there's a huge workload, and to be honest, the government recognises that, us in Fianna Fáil, we understand that this term has to be about delivery. Last term of government, there were a huge number of unforeseen circumstances that they were coping with, as well as trying to deliver on key issues like this. I know when Minister Jack Chambers was in Department of Transport with responsibility for airports and ports in the last term, I spoke to him about this, and their focus at that time was on updating the port strategy right around the country, because of course that was going to be critical for our offshore winds and development of renewable energy. So that happened in the course of the last term of government, and now, having spoken to Minister O'Brien and to his office, we are gearing up and getting ready to look at national aviation policy, and it will be done in this term. And certainly the regional airports programme will be coming up very soon, because that has to be renewed in 2026.
To what extent do you think things like train or bus connectivity across the country is also potentially a barrier here? Because obviously, if you fly into a regional airport, you then have to presumably move on to wherever it is you're going. So if you're a tourist, do you think that might play a role in the attractiveness of whether people want to fly into Shannon Airport or somewhere else, that they're, the connectivity of the country and how interconnected it is with other transport forms that are down the line from the actual flight itself?
Well, fortunately, we're a relatively small country, and we have a near complete motorway network. And when I say near complete, I'm of course thinking of the Limerick to Cork motorway section that does need to be done and is progressing. But there's a motorway connection to Dublin from most of the large cities around the country. And so there's really very little to prevent someone from flying into Cork Airport or Shannon Airport or Knock or Waterford and being in Dublin in a relatively short period of time. When you think about when we go abroad on Ryanair flights, for example, to see parts of Europe, where we might be flying to Paris, that might be our end destination. You're actually flying to Beauvais, which is at least an hour and a half outside of Paris. So it's not unusual for passengers like ourselves to expect to have an onward journey when you arrive in an airport into a country, and that's reflected in the price often of your airfare, and it's also reflected. I think that the willingness to do that is reflected in how busy low cost airlines like Ryanair are. Dublin Airport has grown hugely over the last 10 years, and we haven't done anything really to manage it. It's almost a victim of its own success. It is, of course, a critical piece of infrastructure for the whole country. It is providing invaluable connectivity for us to other countries, and is one of the reasons why we've been successful at winning inward investment into the country. And of course, our economic model is built on that foreign direct investment and the impact that those companies have within regional ecosystems. But we're not utilising the opportunities that we have in other airports. So Shannon, for example, has about 2 million capacity for a further 2 million passengers per annum. Cork has capacity for further millions of passengers per annum. If we were, in my view, what's needed is an update to national aviation policy to align it with the government's goals of balanced regional development, to bring those opportunities for prosperity and investment to the regions across the country, to reduce our reliance on Dublin Airport and really on the greater Dublin area. You know, we've got an absolute glut of people living in one area in the country. It's pushing up our house prices in that part of the country. It's pushing up the cost of doing business in that part of the country. It's pushing up the traffic jams and the school congestion, and having all sorts of consequences on life in that part of the country. And yes, in areas like the Midwest, the West and the South, we have greater capacity for people to come and live, and you know, for people to live their lives, and for people to invest in businesses and provide employment. So air access and aviation connectivity is a critical component in those regional ecosystems and economic ecosystems. And my focus in conversations with Minister O'Brien and ongoing conversations with the deputies in my party over the coming months and years will be to ensure that we're incentivizing and directing airlines to make better use of our regional airports in order to spread that economic opportunity across the country.
And do you think that will be politically easier now that the Green Party is no longer in government? Because I appreciate you're new to the Shannon, so you this might be not a question. I don't know. Anyway, I'll just ask it. That obviously there was a lot of resistance from people within the Green Party to expansions to airports, and this was something that they made a major deal of, and there was some consternation within the government and differences of opinion as to how that should be approached. Do you think that the fact that they are no longer part of the coalition will make a difference to these sorts of maneuvers?
Well, I think ideological opposition to air connectivity into an island like Ireland is just bonkers. We're just shooting ourselves in the foot if we're not open and aware that we need to be more connected to our European market, and more important than ever that we're providing lots of access into our European market for our own Irish companies. So you know, certainly I'm very much pro expansion at Dublin Airport, but it has to happen in tandem with growth in connectivity into our existing regional airports. And you know, I appreciate that there's concerns about the carbon emissions and the impact that has on the environment. Those are important and serious issues. We have to offset those in different ways. But I can tell you from talking to the airlines and from talking to industry stakeholders, if the flights aren't coming to Shannon, if the flights aren't coming to Cork, they're going somewhere else in the world. They might not be coming into Ireland, but they're going somewhere else in the world. So we have to make sure that we're fully capable of embracing the opportunities to trade with other countries, and particularly into our EU market. And that means we have to be accessible through our airports.